Welcome to the Book Review Podcast. This is where we take a stack of sources, articles, research, our own notes, and really dig in. We pull out the essential insights, basically giving you a shortcut to being well-informed on a topic. Today we're diving into some really powerful excerpts from Ryan Holiday's book, Ego is the Enemy. It's generated a lot of discussion. And the core claim, right up front, it's pretty bold. The book says ego isn't just some abstract idea or a minor flaw. It paints ego as the single biggest obstacle to mastery, to doing good work, and ultimately to finding real success.
That's a really strong statement, isn't it? And the way the book unpacks it is, it looks at how ego pops up at different points in life. When you're aspiring towards something, when you've actually achieved some success, and maybe most importantly, when you hit setbacks or even fail completely. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really understand what the book means by ego and look at how it suggests we can, manage it.
Yeah, it really pushes back against a lot of the common advice we hear these days.
Oh.
Okay, let's get into this. The book uses all these historical examples, right? Emperors, writers, generals, athletes. Showing this battle with ego is ancient. Universal.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start at the beginning. How does this source define ego? It doesn't sound like it means just, self-esteem or basic confidence.
No, not really. The book calls ego an obstacle, an insatiable beast within, even artificial.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's presented as this dangerous break from reality. It's that belief in your own importance, your own narrative, getting so big it blocks clear judgment. It messes with honest self-assessment, how you connect with people.
A break from reality.
Wow.
How does that actually show up day to day?
Well, it builds walls. Walls that stop you from genuinely working with others, or hearing feedback that you maybe don't want to hear, or seeing opportunities that don't fit the story you're telling yourself. It's that voice inside saying, I'm special, I deserve this, I know best.
Mm-hmm.
Often when, reality is pointing somewhere else entirely, it makes you the easiest person to fool yourself. Like the physicist Richard Feynman is quoted in the book. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Ego's the main way we do that.
And man, it feels like the modern world just pours gasoline on that fire, doesn't it? The book talks about social media, this constant performing, looking for likes. It makes it so easy to just puff ourselves up, to talk about goals instead of doing the work. We hear all the time, believe in yourself, think big, dare greatly. But the book sees that as a potential trap if ego's driving it.
Exactly. It draws a stark contrast between that inflated self-image and real confidence. True confidence, the book says, is quieter, more grounded. The difference is really clear. Whereas ego is artificial, this type of confidence can hold weight. Ego is stolen, confidence is earned. Earned confidence, that comes from actual effort, real results. Ego often just needs applause or, fantasy.
Which leads to one of the points that really struck me early on. The book actually suggests you need to think less of yourself. Not in a down on yourself way, but quieting that loud, needy ego part. The idea is that this isn't about making yourself small. It's about being liberated to accomplish, getting yourself out of the way so the work can happen.
That's the paradox, isn't it? The very thing you think you need to succeed, this huge belief in your own specialness, might actually be what trips you up, especially right at the start. So let's kind of follow the book's path here and look at that first stage. Aspiration. How does ego show up when you're just starting out? Hungry, maybe a bit insecure.
Oh, yeah. It often looks like wanting to seem like you've already made it, or pretending you're smarter than you really are yet. The book talks about building these fantastical stories about your future, acting like you've got it all mapped out, seeking comfort, validation from others, instead of just, putting your head down and doing the work, which is often not very glamorous at all.
Yeah, there's a great example in the book about the writer Emily Gould. She got this big book deal really early on, which, sounds amazing. But instead of actually writing, she found herself kind of stuck, spending, as she put it, a lot of time on the internet. She even admitted, this didn't earn me any money, but it felt like work.
Oof. I think a lot of us can relate to that, doing everything but focus. The book quotes Kierkegaard saying that kind of chatter. It anticipates real talk and weakens action by forestalling it. It's like the noise just drowns out the signal. So the book argues for, silence, especially early on. Just focus on the craft, the basics, not the potential rewards.
Absolutely. Which leads to this really critical choice the book lays out right when you start anything new, to be or to do. It frames life, or maybe just work, as this constant roll call. Are you going to choose seeking status and recognition to be, or are you going to commit to the actual work itself, which is often invisible, to do?
And the book really argues that to do is the path less taken, but it's the one that actually gets results. Like, think about that military strategist John Boyd Genghis John. Brilliant guy, developed all these core ideas for air combat.
Yeah.
But he chose to live simply, didn't chase rank, ended up known as the ghetto colonel. The book says he was basically forgotten by history as a punishment for the work he did, which is wild.
That example really makes you question what success even is, doesn't it? Boyd prioritized impact, the work itself, over the usual career ladder. And the book suggests this to-do approach, especially early on, might mean taking on roles others think are, well, beneath them. Brings up this old Roman idea of the anti-nibulo, someone who literally walked ahead of a powerful person clearing the path.
So like a fancy assistant?
Sort of, yeah, but the key thing is the anti-ambulo wasn't just running errands. They were embedded, absorbing everything, understanding the landscape, making themselves indispensable through service. The argument is that this mindset reduces your ego at a critical time. It lets you just learn and observe without your ego demanding the spotlight.
Okay, so it's not about being a doormat. It's more like strategic humility. Learning from the inside.
Exactly. Think about someone like Bill Belichick, hugely successful football coach, his very first NFL job, volunteering, no pay. He just dove into analyzing game film total grunt work that others felt they were too good for.
Right.
Apparently, his early insights often got credited to other people, but he didn't care. He was just soaking it all up like a sponge.
And the book highlights that amazing paradox. The person who clears the path ultimately controls its direction. By mastering the background stuff, the canvas, you end up shaping the whole picture. That early egoless work gives you this deep understanding that pays off hugely later on.
Okay, so staying grounded, doing the work, crucial at the start. What about as you move forward, the book really hammers home the idea of always being a student.
Yes, it holds up being a perpetual student as this powerful antidote to ego. If you always have a teacher, a mentor, someone you're learning from, it kind of places the ego and ambition in someone else's hands. Sets an ego ceiling, right? Stops you from thinking you know everything. As the book puts it, learning can't be hacked. There are no shortcuts besides hacking it every single day. The moment you stop learning, ego tells you you're done, and that's when you stall.
And admitting you don't know everything, or that someone else is better. It's incredibly tough for the ego, isn't it? The book says adjusting your view of your own talents in a downward direction is one of the most difficult things to do, but it's almost always a component of mastery. Ouch. It takes a deliberate effort, maybe even a system. The book points to one from the MMA fighter Frank Shamrock, his plus, minus, and equal system. The idea is for effective training, you need someone plus better than you to learn from, someone minus not as good, so you can teach and solidify your own grasp, and someone equal to really challenge you.
That's brilliant. It's like constant 360-degree feedback.
Precisely. Shamrock's quoted saying, "This system purges out the ego that puffs us up, the fear that makes us doubt ourselves, and any laziness." His take is blunt. False ideas about yourself destroy you. You have to use that humility as a tool.
And the book stresses this isn't just for fighters, right? It's for everyone. Scientists, artists, leaders. A real student is like a sponge, self-critical, their own teacher and their own critic. When you're truly focused on learning and challenging yourself, there's just no room for ego there. Okay, this all makes a lot of sense. Stay humble, keep learning. But then the book kind of throws a wrench in things. It challenges that whole idea of follow your passion.
It does. It actually argues that your passion may be the very thing holding you back.
Whoa, that feels so counterculture right now. Everyone's about passion projects.
It feels that way, yeah. But the book builds a case. Passion can be unstable, it argues, self-centered, even blinding sometimes. It contrasts passion-driven people with figures like Eleanor Roosevelt, who seemed driven more by purpose, by direction. And it uses some cautionary examples about the passion behind the Iraq War decision-making, or Christopher McCandless heading into the wild, driven by this passionate but maybe reckless vision. The suggestion is that unchecked passion, especially when tangled up with ego, can lead to really bad judgment, tunnel vision.
So purpose is more outward, steady, while passion can be inward and maybe burn out or lead you astray.
That seems to be the distinction, yeah. And if ego is tricky when you're aspiring, it can be truly destructive once success actually shows up. This is where that danger of early pride comes roaring in.
How does that work?
Well, the book says early pride dulls these senses, the ones you need to keep learning, to take feedback, to stay hungry. It makes you super sensitive to any criticism. Everything becomes about you. It inflates your sense of your own abilities way beyond reality. There's a quote from Genghis Khan warning his sons that pride would be harder to subdue than a wild lion.
Wow, if you said that.
Right. And the book argues that what sometimes looks like early confidence or even necessary boldness, people taking huge risks or making claims that seem unfounded, is often just ego. It might seem like it works for a bit, but it's just kicking the costs down the road, like the analogy of athletes juicing, taking shortcuts because they believe everyone else is or they don't trust their own real talent. True ambition, the book suggests, is quieter. It's that lonely fight to be real, built on quiet confidence.
The Howard Hughes story feels like such a tragic example of that. The book describes his mind, his business, as being split in two parts. One hand building these amazing things, the other working equally hard to undermine it. Ego, basically driving self-destruction. It really asks that brutal question. Can you actually handle success? Or will it end up being the worst thing that happens to you?
It's a critical question because success is like super fuel for the ego beast. The book contrasts Hughes with someone like General George C. Marshall. During World War II, he specifically refused to keep a diary. He knew it would be historically valuable, but he worried it would turn his private thoughts into a performance and self-deception, that he'd start thinking about how future readers might see him. People who navigate success well, the book argues, they curb such flights of fancy. They stay anchored in reality.
That kind of restraint is
Wow.
powerful. Okay, so ego messes us up. Starting out, it can corrupt us when we succeed. What about when things inevitably go wrong? The book says if success is like being drunk on ego, then failure is a devastating ego blow.
Right. An ego. When you fail, that's what turns slips into falls and little troubles into great unravelings. When your whole identity is tied up in being seen as successful, failure feels like a judgment on your very worth. So you lash out, you blame everyone else, or you just collapse into self-pity.
But the book also frames failure as a trial.
Right.
And even an opportunity.
It does. The story of Katharine Graham taking over the Washington Post is incredible here. Her husband had died by suicide. She inherits the paper.
Yeah.
And it's facing huge crises, financial trouble, a nasty strike where employees wore shirts saying, "Phil shot the wrong Graham," hostile investors. Awful. But her response wasn't about her hurt ego or feeling sorry for herself. It was driven by purpose, by the job that needed doing. As the book says, it wasn't about her. It was about the legacy, the paper, the job.
She got herself out of the way, again,
Oh.
to serve something bigger.
Exactly. And this connects to that concept Malcolm X learned in prison, alive time or dead time. He couldn't control being locked up, but he absolutely could control how he used that time. He chose a lifetime. He taught himself, read constantly, turned awful circumstances into this period of intense growth. He said he'd never been so truly free in his life while locked away.
That's such a powerful reframe. Failure forces you to stop, doesn't it? And the book suggests that pause is maybe your chance to finally deal with stuff you've been putting off. But the danger, if ego's in charge, is that people just reinvest energy into the behaviors that caused the problems in the first place.
Yeah, instead of learning, they just double down, convinced they were right all along and something else was unfair. The book really pushes you to ask when you fail. What if we said, this is an opportunity for me, I'm using it for my purposes, I will not let this be dead time for me. The situation might feel like dead time, but how you use it, that's always up to you. So through all these stages, aspiration, success, failure, the book is crystal clear. Managing ego isn't something you do once and you're done. It's constant.
Like sweeping the floor, yeah. I remember that metaphor. Dust comes back every day, got to sweep every day. Ego's just like that.
And the book really warns about that constant pull, that temptation to seek external validation for doing the daily sweeping. Look at the story of Belisarius, the Roman general. He saved the Byzantine Empire again and again, pulled off these incredible military victories, and his reward, constant suspicion from the emperor, disrespect, even punishment sometimes, not parades and power.
Oh man, that must have been infuriating. How did you deal with that?
Well, the lesson the book draws from him is crucial. Doing good work is sufficient. His pride, his sense of worth came from fulfilling his duty, his own standards, not from what the emperor thought. The less attached you are to those external results, the praise, the rewards, the fame, the better you can handle those situations without your ego getting totally crushed or wildly inflated. Real self-respect comes from meeting your own standards, from the effort, the integrity, not the results, good or bad.
That totally shifts the focus inward, doesn't it? Onto what you actually control. It makes me think about how we react when people criticize us or ignore us or even try to hurt us.
Yeah, the book contrasts two different ways people react to that stuff. On one side, you have people consumed by anger and resentment, like William Randolph Hearst trying to destroy Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. He spent years, fortunes, probably hurt himself more in the end. Or Dave Mustaine, just eaten up for years by rage after getting kicked out of Metallica.
Right. And the other side, the alternative.
The alternative is people like Wells himself, who didn't let Hearst's attacks make him bitter. He just moved on, did his next thing. Or Frederick Douglass. Remember that story? When they tried to force him into a segregated baggage car, trying to degrade him, his response was amazing. They cannot degrade Frederick Douglass. I am not the one that is being degraded, but those who are inflicting it upon me. He saw their actions reflected on them, not on him.
Wow. That is incredibly powerful. Recognizing that someone else trying to put you down says more about them than you.
It boils down to knowing who you are and why you do what you do. That's the core question the book really forces you to confront, honestly. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah. Why do you do it? Is it for the likes?
Yeah.
The money? The status? Or is it for the impact? The craft itself?
Exactly. The book argues that only by getting clear on your real motivation can you avoid getting dragged into these stupid races that don't matter or even exist. That self-awareness, that clarity, that's what builds the quiet, solid confidence we talked about earlier, not the ego kind.
It's that steak versus sizzle thing again, isn't it? Focusing on the real substance. The steak, like Belichick or Angela Merkel, are portrayed not the flashy sizzle of fame or how things look.
And while we can learn so much from looking at these historical figures, the book does acknowledge something important near the end, sometimes even after reading about it, even understanding it intellectually. You might still need to experience some of ego's pitfalls yourself for the lesson to really, truly stick. There's that Bismarck quote about fools learning from experience, wise men from others. But also Plutarch reminding us that knowledge often comes from the doing, the experience, not just hearing words. Managing ego isn't passive. It's an active, ongoing process, continuously smashing it with higher standards with discipline, like Tom Brady, always pushing to improve, even when everyone already called him the greatest.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for us right now?
Well, based on these sources, the overwhelming message is that ego isn't just standing in the way of fame or money. It's the enemy of real strength, of learning, of resilience when things get tough. And ultimately, it's the enemy of finding genuine meaning in what you do. It's not some monster you slay once. It's a tendency you have to manage every day. Every time you choose between puffing yourself up or putting your head down, between fantasy and reality, between needing applause and just focusing on the work that matters.
Which really leaves you with a question to chew on today. Given that choice between the fragile, temporary ego built on hype and what others think, and that rock-solid earned confidence built on reality, hard work, and integrity, which one are you actively building today? Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Ego is the Enemy. We really hope exploring these ideas from the source gives you some valuable tools for navigating this powerful and pretty persistent obstacle in your own life and work. Keep these ideas close, doing over being, staying a student, handling success carefully, finding the opportunity in failure. Thanks for listening to the Book Review Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a comment. See you next time.